Okay, so with this case, we're going to design a molar. It's tooth number 2, and it's going to be an Emax crown. Now, this case is a little bit different because I'm in a bit of a pickle with what the assistant gave me. I was given a bite reg that was taken in the mouth. I was also given an opposing arch scan. So if tooth number 2 is the tooth we're doing, then the opposing arch is the lower. I was given the lower scan. However, I was not given a buccal bite scan. So I can't really do anything with that because with E4D, if you choose one type of bite registration, you can't just go back and change it up. So what I did here is I took the bite reg, okay, and I trimmed it to where the buccal is not covering those cusps there on the buccal side. Try and get this in focus. So the bite reg, I cut it off to where the buccal cusps are exposed. So that way, when I do a buccal bite scan, it's accurate because I don't have an articulator in this office to use for E4D cases that are on models. I'm going to use this. So that way there's no problem stitching the buccal bite once I scan this. So I'm going to go ahead and, okay, I'm going to go ahead and get this scanned in. Alright, so I have my margin all drawn up. I'm not going to go over how to do that in this video. We're just going to go over the designing aspects with the margin. I'll make a separate video for that. So right now I'm just bringing it to size, kind of bringing it somewhat close to the size of the molar next to it. So size first, then I get the height squared away, and then from there a little bit of rotation if needed. Just kind of check the occlusal plane, make sure they match, that it's not like way off like this. Have it nice and straight where you can see through the valley, see the tips of the mountains kind of matching up. Okay, that's looking real good. We're going to go to design now. Alright, so we're going to apply this design. Now, let's see, they have some good sloping there, so I'm not going to adjust that. They don't really have much wear, so I'm going to leave this rough draft as is and apply it with Auto Genesis on. Now usually when you're working with the very back molar, the distal tends to stretch out a little bit too much. Not by much, but it does kind of go back a little bit. So I'm going to bring that back in, make it a little more natural in width. Now, I mean, you could see here is very thin right there. Let's first examine why. So right now to examine it, I'm looking at the occlusion. I'm going to use my slicing tool, go right into that range, and yeah, we are a bit tight there with the bite, so I'm just going to do the best I can, and what I'm going to have to do is leave an instruction for the assistant who's delivering the case to adjust opposing, because that looks like with this case what we are going to have to do to make this work. Okay, so next is just kind of generally getting the thickness in order. That's what I typically like to adjust first, is the thickness, and then finagle everything else from there. So say if I get the thickness just right and then I realize that the bite's very high, then from there I know, okay, well, I'm just going to have to adjust opposing, it looks like. Now, same thing like we did with the rough draft, is we're just making sure the valleys and the tops of the mountains are matching up. So I'm kind of looking like as if I was in the mouth, looking at profile view and matching that up. I feel like the mesial's a bit short. Close that in a little bit. That's too thin. I'm going to bring that up. I use the painting tool to do that. If it's just small areas I need to move, I like using the paint feature. That's my favorite for small adjustments. I'm going to kind of soften how pointy that distal lingual cusp is. It's a bit like too much. There we go. Kind of smoothing off that distal there. It was a bit, there we go, a little more squared off, broaden. Okay, so thickness first. Just getting that. So this bright yellow halo, that's way too thin. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm just using the rubber tooth to adjust this. Now it could be called something different with CEREC, but with D4D, It is called rubber tooth. Now, when you have a tiny little area like this, just a tiny little area, and it's where the groove is, what I like to use is define feature. It's your little drawing tool. I select that groove and bring it out where I need it to thicken. Okay, and then I go back and just kind of soften that rough ledge a little bit, so that looks a lot better, and you still have that look of the groove but without making it very bulbous by using the rubber tooth feature. Okay, so now something that I'm noticing is how far out the corner of this MB cusp is. You have a nice rounded distal buccal cusp of this molar next to it, so I kind of want to match that anatomy, very rounded corners with this patient on all these teeth, right? So I'm going to kind of bring that in and match what's going on in the mouth. You know, not everyone's one size fits all. You really got to pay attention to your surroundings and adapt to that. Otherwise, it feels like an alien tooth in their mouth. It's just not natural for them. So pay attention to those small details. Okay, so right now I'm liking the thickness. I'm just going to, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and check the bite because I know that's going to be my biggest struggle with this case. And as predicted, it is pretty high. So what we have is the points of contact is straight occlusal right in the middle here and a little bit of that lingual. So we're going to check our thickness and see what I can do first as major adjustments to fix this. So the major adjustment I'm thinking maybe is bring down this mesiobuccal cusp. I'm going to use the move feature tool, bring it gingerly and angle it inward a little bit. Still good on thickness. Now I'm going to take the paint tool because the very thick blue areas, I want to adjust specifically that area without thinning out this area. So what I'm going to use is my paint feature, again my favorite tool for small areas that I want to adjust. Okay, we're still good on thickness. I like to take a pause or a break and just kind of see where I'm at thickness wise when I'm making little adjustments like this. And I tend to jump around on the tools that I use. I go from smoothing, I go from rubber, paint tool, so whatever works best for you and whatever gets the job done quicker. Now we don't want the distal too tall. There's no occlusion there anyway, so I'm not gonna worry about that. You also, you know, I'm checking these buccal cuffs to make sure they're not too flared out, which leaves like a shelf for the cheek to sit on, and then they just constantly bite it. So that's definitely one major thing I love checking, making sure your teeth are hugging each other, those buccal cusps are. All right, so at this point, I think what I'm gonna do is cut my losses and just let the doctor know that we will need to adjust opposing on this case. So now at this point, I'm gonna stop with adjusting the bite and I'm just gonna do some general smoothing, kind of polish off those fine lines. So like if you were to look at the margin here, it's a little rough looking. However, I take down how strong it is because I don't want to make it seem like I just took a diamond burr to this crown and smoothed it down. I want it like a polisher. Now, we want a nice broad contact. That's what's going on with these other teeth here. You can see how broad these contacts are. And what I like to use is this tool here. We're going to go into this and we are going to broaden mesial. Okay, just kind of square that up a little bit. Now from there, I don't like to adjust the contact first and then use that tool because it's going to make it tight again. So I use the broadening tool first, then I go back and adjust the contact. So this obviously very heavy, but we're going to bring it down to just a little bit of aqua. And I like to use the dropper tool, but in a negative aspect. So we're taking away rather than adding. Almost there. Good, just a little bit of aqua. It's looking good. Okay, so we have all of our parameters. We checked the occlusion, made sure it was nice and snug here. The cheek can't sneak in. Same with the tongue, that the lingual isn't too short and they bite their tongue. The occlusion, we're going to address that with the doctor, and the contacts are adjusted. So at this point, now I am ready to send off the case for milling, and we are done. I'm just going to place the sprue. That looks actually like a good spot there. I might try the buckle. Yep, that's it. All right, so that's it for this case. Let me know if you have any questions, comment below. Otherwise, I will be posting more videos like this because Again, not every case is the same. There's a lot of, tricky situations with each crown, and I will go over all of that with you and all the tips and tricks that I learned in the past.